If you own cryptocurrency, you should know that governments around the world, probably even your own, are trying to find new ways to tax you and new ways to take away your privacy. And today I'm going to tell you about the latest big initiative they have going. Here's an article from Nomad. I've been tracking what they're talking about in various tax journals and other newspapers for a while now, and they're talking about a new crypto asset reporting framework being released by the OECD. That's a group that lobbies for higher taxes, basically. And they have a consultation paper that proposes crypto asset reporting framework to ensure fair reporting of crypto assets for effective taxation. That's what they call it. That's what we're going to talk about today and what you need to know. If it's your first time here, my name is Andrew Henderson. I'm the founder of Nomad Capitalist. We're a boutique consultancy that helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally reduce their taxes, diversify, and protect their assets and their freedom, and just go where you're treated best, basically. I'm also the host of the biggest and best offshore conference called Nomad Capitalist Live, which is open to everybody. And so here's what Nomad has to say. A crypto asset reporting framework, or CARF, has been designed by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD, to ensure the collection and exchange of information on transactions in crypto assets. A consultation paper on the same was released by the organization. Now, the OECD, if you haven't seen other discussions on this, is basically a lobbying group for 30-some high-tax countries. And they basically go around bullying people into raising their taxes. They don't like competition. Basically, they are the lobbyists of governments like the US, most of the European Union states, and they're the enemy of emerging countries that want the freedom to run their country the way they want. They're the ones proposing a global minimum tax and putting that framework together. They're the ones who are basically, they just want you to pay more. They're really angry. And by the way, you should know they pay nothing in tax most of the time. So they want you to pay a lot more. They want your privacy taken away while they go down the streets of Paris in their chauffeured limousines paying zero tax. It's right on their website, by the way. You don't take my word for it. But here's what the OECD believes, that the crypto asset market poses a significant risk to perhaps the existence of the OECD that threatens to erode the gains in global tax transparency. These are all the buzzwords that they use at the OECD. They're all about transparency, not for themselves, but for you. They also said that crypto asset intermediaries are not being subjected to tax reporting requirements. Basically, no matter what you do for these people, it's never enough. The OECD wrote in a new consultation draft that once the framework is approved, basically the framework that they put together, this is what they do. They just basically get money from people and they go around creating policy papers on how everyone else should pay more except for themselves. And so they're always just writing stuff. By the way, they happen to have the ear of some of the most influential people in the world, particularly in Western countries where you probably live. That once the framework is approved, they're going to go shopping this around to governments now, it can be transposed into domestic law by member countries in order to collect from resident crypto intermediaries. It then plans to urge countries to sign bilateral or multilateral authority agreements or arrangements for the automatic exchange of information collected under the CARF in the document reviewed by Nomad. So basically, they want to put in place all kinds of new transparency. This is what they're always trying to do. Everyone should know your business. If you look at some European countries, you can just go and look up how much money they have. You can look up, the guy's home address. You can look up his passport number. You can look up all kinds of information about what these companies are doing. You're not entitled to any privacy. You're the evil business owner. You're the evil investor. All the normal people who, by the way, are the ones voting in the politicians that are advised by the OECD, as if that's not a conflict of interest. All the normal people, the hard-working people who pay $783 in taxes every year, they deserve to know all of your business. And now they deserve to know more about the transparency of your cryptocurrency. They want to know every single detail. So basically, they can have what they do for the financial industry, for banks. Automatic exchange of information that they collect, and then they just share all around to the different governments, so they can do that. Now, let me be very clear in my position. We help people go where you are treated best here at Nomad Capitalist. What we don't help people do, what I've spoken out as the goody two-shoes of the offshore world, is if you sit and live in the United States or France or whatever other country is using the OECD as their lobbying arm to bully everyone else into raising taxes, you have a tax obligation. If you are a tax resident in any of these Western high-tax countries, you have a tax obligation. I suggest full compliance with taxes, and I mean that. But you should also have the opportunity to escape the system. And of course, what the OECD has shown is it wants to put in place things like a global minimum tax. They're having a little bit of trouble doing that right now. And it's not necessarily going to affect everybody right away. But their goal is just everybody's paying more money. Nobody has any privacy except for the politicians and for them. And so they want to take away your right, basically, to say, you know what, I'm in crypto. I plan on substantial capital gains, or I'm staking, or I'm doing whatever, and I have a big income coming in. Or, you know what, in addition to the fact that I'd like to pay less tax, the real motivation is I just don't like my country. Just met with some folks the other day. They said, you know what, we moved to Asia. Thank goodness we moved here, because our life is so much better, so much more socially fulfilling, so much more enriching than it was where we grew up in North America. And people should have the right to go where they want. And countries should have the right to attract those people with tax-friendly policies, with better regulatory environments, with better corporate structures, whatever the case may be. And now you have countries that are starting to compete for crypto. Countries like Portugal, perhaps under the watchful eye of the OECD, are kind of moving away from that to some degree. But other countries are going to want to welcome these people. No, the OECD wants to get all their high-taxing bully countries together and bully all the other ones to where you can't have a place to go. It's one thing to say, hey, you're living in your country and you're not paying your taxes. You don't have to agree with them, but you have the legal obligation to pay. It's another thing to say, I want to get out of this system and go where I'm treated best. You can do that now. The OECD wants to stop that. Are they going to be successful? Well, let's see. I don't think that every country is always going to jump on board with this kind of stuff, but certainly your country where you are living is probably one of these, as the article says, 35 high-income nations that advises on crucial economic policy matters. And one thing I know about people at this organizations like this is they always use words that just sound great because they are trained diplomats. They go to school basically to lie to people, to BS people, to make everything sound nice. You'll never have a human-to-human conversation. You will never be able to have a genuine conversation with any of these people. They go around, they go to parties, they're being chauffeured. I see these people, by the way. I live surrounded in a couple of my different homes by diplomats. I see it. I see the chauffeurs. I see the parties. I see the guy getting dropped off at the Ritz-Carlton for the party. That guy worked 39 minutes today, got paid a lot more than most people, and he wants to raise your taxes. And so they have all these nice fancy sounding words about how, crucial economic policy matters. Do you know what? The people in the countries who have the least money are the ones who are fighting back against this. Let's say the OECD's global minimum tax. Countries like Pakistan and others in Africa don't want some of the policies. What they're doing is saying you shouldn't have any options. You're an American, you're Belgian, you're French, you're Spanish, you're Japanese, whatever. Hey, just sit there and shut up and pay. And now report on all of your crypto. And so this is the latest thing. They want to put together the crypto asset reporting framework. It is inching closer. And what I always tell you is, when you see countries that constantly, the US is always talking about this, do not be fooled, by the way, by the media where they're now saying, oh, they're putting together a bill in Congress that if your crypto is under $200 in the US, they're going to, there's some people who want to make that exempt from capital gains. That's great for everyday use, but if you're holding, $10 million, that's not really going to save solve your problems. You need reduced capital gains tax on the $10 million, not on the latte you're buying that morning. So don't be fooled by these countries where they constantly call for more regulation. Janet Yellen is pushing all this OECD stuff. She wants this to happen. She wants a crypto asset reporting framework. You think the people in the Biden administration and other governments around the Western world don't want this? They've actively come out and said, we need this kind of framework. And so their buddies at the OECD, they need to be busy. They need to be busy bees earning their tax-free salary. So they come up with some proposal and they hand it off. All right, that looks great. And the people will vote for this because they're tired of people who have more money than they do getting rich. And so even if it doesn't happen today, even if you hear things where it's like, oh, well, they're trying to make it a little bit easier, the trend is in the wrong direction. The trend should be, where can you go? And they're saying, hey, 10-year tax holiday. Hey, 0% for this. Hey, bring your business and we'll get your taxes down. If you're an American, you can go to Puerto Rico. If you're pretty much anybody else, you can go anywhere else in the world. And so I believe in competition. If you want to stay in the United States or Canada or Australia and be locked in, and you want to pay their exorbitant tax rates, you should have the right to do that. But they shouldn't tell you that you have to give up your money, give up your privacy, but that's what is making its way through slowly. It'll be interesting to see what happens to the CARF. But if I'm in crypto, what am I going to do? I'm going to have a second residence. I'm going to have a second passport. I'm going to have a place that is legally, fully disclosed. Have a bank account. If I have to disclose it, I'm going to disclose it. Have a bank account that perhaps is crypto friendly. Where can I be able to avoid, chaos in my own country if banks decide to go the wrong direction? I'm not saying do anything that's untoward. I'm saying have a backup plan. Have a place or places to go. Have an off-ramp for your finances. Do things legally. It's what we talk about all the time, and it's what we help people do. But I wouldn't just be a sitting duck for CARF or whatever the next iteration is to come through, especially at a time when many of these countries are already trying to raise taxes, and especially when they're already starting to paint cryptocurrency folks. It's a little bit harder right now with prices being down, but they're trying to paint cryptocurrency folks in the same sort of vein that they've been so desperate for so many years as they've been painting the Russian oligarchs. I'm not siding with the Russian oligarchs. I don't know Putin, but I will tell you, they want it to be like, oh, these crypto fat cats. They want to basically make people think of you in the same way as like the oligarchs, where you are some wealthy guy who's in Dubai. You got the bling, you got the Ferrari, you have the 7 women on your right, and they're like, hey, Mr. Voter in Kansas City, you don't like this guy, do you? And they're going to use that to invade your privacy and raise your tax rates. So that's what's coming down the road. Don't say we didn't warn you. Get your backup plan in place today.